Well, this is something that's been brewing for quite a little while, and I guess it's finally starting to come to a head. We're sending troops down to Venezuela to start messing around with the government down there because I guess they want to finally swap out Maduro with somebody else. And I don't know. As somebody who tries to be as rational as I can about everything, I don't do a very good job a lot of the time, but I try. As somebody who tries to be as rational as I can about things, it's very hard to come to a solid viewpoint on this particular situation because it's more complex than should we or shouldn't we, or is it right or is it wrong. There are many variables to consider when it comes to dealing with a country like Venezuela that is, actively involved in a lot of things that are just not good for the United States. On the one hand, I believe I really wanted, Trump's whole we're not going to go to war thing to be a thing, because as someone who leans heavily libertarian, I think that war is just not the way to go. It's a big waste of money. Yeah, there's a lot of people who benefit from it, but as a country, we're always worse off when that happens. And so spending money on fighting an enemy that, especially enemies we don't need to fight, that aren't a direct threat to us, just does not seem like a really good thing for me, a really good thing for the United States. But on the other hand, Venezuela does participate in an illegal drug trade, and while again, so that's one AB situation. There's another AB situation that follows right after that. While I tend, as somebody who's more libertarian minded than anything else, I tend to believe in the idea that if you want to put chemicals in your body that change the way that you think about things, that's all on you, boo-boo. You do what you want to do. No other adult should be coming around and trying to tell you can't do heroin or cocaine or any of the other stuff you want to do. If that's what you want to do with your life, you should be free to do that. But at the same time, because we've made these things illegal, we have criminal organizations infiltrating into our country. And while, yeah, I don't necessarily think that the drug trade part of it is necessarily something we should be, wagging our fingers at people for doing drugs, criminal organizations do a lot of other criminal things that are very dangerous to American citizens. So, yeah, you could make everything legal, but the criminal organizations are going to do criminal things regardless of whether there are criminal things that they have to do to make the things that they need to do. Criminals are criminals because they don't want to follow the rules. They want to find a way around the things that make it fair for everybody. And, cartels coming up into the United States to do things are always going to resort to violence and theft and all of these other things, in addition to what we've arbitrarily decided is an illegal thing. So when you look at this situation, and then, there's also the third part of it that a lot of people argue when it comes to the drugs, where it's, there's, because it's an illegal, unregulated thing that's happening, there is a lot of weird stuff that gets put into the drugs that people are taking that they don't necessarily know they're getting, and that is a valid point. You can't really just brush that aside. That is a thing. So when I look at this war that's going into Venezuela, my overall opinion is, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Let's not waste billions upon billions of dollars sending our military down to freaking Venezuela to do this stuff. But at the same time, there is that little part of it that is a valid argument of, well, while Venezuela is not a direct military threat to the United States, they are doing things that are threats that are a direct threat to our citizens. I don't know if that's a justification for what we're starting to do now. It's one of those very complicated situations where you can't really just stand up and say this is a black and white issue, because it's not. I think that on balance, we're making the wrong move here. But at the same time, I also, as a libertarian-minded person, I think, while war is a terrible thing and we should not be engaging in it ever, I also understand the world for what it is, that we live in a world full of people who don't like us, who would gladly step in and invade our country if they could, and having an extremely strong military is a very smart thing to do as the world's foremost power, right? So we all of us want to think that there is a simple, straightforward answer to every question, and sometimes there's just not. Sometimes it's more complicated than just, no, we should do this, or no, we should do that. Everything in life is a trade-off. Yeah, we could save a lot of money by not funding our military anymore, but then we open the door to other countries coming in to try to mess with us, because now we don't have the strength to defend ourselves anymore. Yeah, we could leave Venezuela alone and not spend the money on that, but then the cartels continue to get more and more and more powerful until at some point maybe they start gaining some kind of real parity with the United States. I don't know. I'm not here to tell you what you should think. I'm here to tell you the things that I'm considering and the details that are part of this process that we're having to look at so that you can decide for yourself what you think about the situation. It's more complicated than just I have a morally correct viewpoint and this is what we should be doing, because yeah, the morally correct viewpoint would be leave Venezuela alone. We're not responsible for them, and they're not trying to attack us in any way. So why the fuck are we fucking with them? But it's more nuanced than that. Now, I'm the first to say that our government is highly corrupt, has all kinds of problems, and you can't necessarily believe a word that comes out of their mouth. So that's another layer to the situation that you as a viewer have to think about when you're thinking about what's going on here. Are we getting the whole truth? Are they telling us everything about this situation? Probably not, because they want a war and they want to do what they're going to do. So I know this video is probably not helping you to come to a solid idea of what to do, because I'm not intending to do that. That's not what this video is for. This video is to get you, as somebody who may not have thought about things in this way, to start thinking about things in this way so that you can get as confused as I am. And maybe start working through it on your own, because this is one of those situations where your viewpoint, your background, the way that you see the world and think about things is going to determine whether you think that this is a good thing or a bad thing. And that's up to each and every one of you as a viewer to decide for yourself, not the media, not YouTubers, not anybody else. You need to look at the situation, understand the different dynamics, especially the ones that I've presented here today, and make your own decision as to what you think this really is. And that's all you can do. I mean, obviously, none of us are going to go up there and tell President Trump, no, don't do that. They're going to do what they're going to do. There's nothing we can do about it. So I'm sorry that that's the way that it is. I'm sorry to make your life a little bit more difficult by portraying things in this way, but I believe in telling people the truth. And from my viewpoint, this is the truth of the situation. Is Venezuela a direct threat to the United States? No, but it is an indirect threat to the United States, and maybe military action is required to start pushing the cartels down a little bit. We've ignored problems here in the Western Hemisphere for far too long, and maybe it is time to start putting our foot down on some of these things. I think you should be able to do drugs if you want to, but I don't want criminals roaming around the country at will. And I think that's a reasonable attitude. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you for the next one.